So now that I have hit record, this will be um, Lightroom lunch with Aaron from Rockbrook Camera. This is essentially part one. Um, so it's going to just cover Lightroom basic tools from left to right. We'll go through the different modules and what they do. Like I've said before, I'm not this ultimate, trained Lightroom certified expert, but I use it every day for my personal stuff and work stuff here. So I have an excellent handle on how to get around and the main things that you need to know to get rolling with it. So let me go ahead and open Lightroom. The chat's on the right side, so any questions about what I'm doing, go ahead and just throw them down there. Okay. Ooh, Adobe updated terms of service. We will say okay to that. Okay, so hopefully you guys can all see my Lightroom screen here. Trying to keep the chat box in a place that I can see it. But this is Lightroom Classic. It is what I use for 90-something% of my editing. It's a great, powerful tool for ingesting files, making edits, and then exporting them to some sort of final form. So on this main screen, when you launch Lightroom Classic, this is what we get. Our library tab is up first. Along the left side is our navigator, which shows what we've currently got up. It also shows all of our folders where we have imported images to, including external devices. If you are working off of a external hard drive, they're going to show up here. You can see right now I don't have some of these external devices that I have used in the past plugged in, so they are grayed out. But my hard drive is currently mounted and accessible with that green dot. There is also a thing called collections, of which I tend to mostly use just like the quick collection to throw stuff in to collect from separate folders. If I'm trying to collect a variety of images, from different vacations or different demos or whatever to have in one place to, export the same. I'll use that quick collection. But typically I will import and name the photos accordingly per event, and I'm able to click through pretty quickly on this left side based on the subject that I have tagged and the folder that I've put it in. On the right side of the library module is a quick develop settings here. Very, very basic editing tools, just using the arrows to push stuff around. We'll pop over there. Lightroom also within the library gives you the ability to add and search through keywords. So you can add certain keywords like vacation or mountains or whatever you want to go search by later to quickly filter throughout your whole catalog. So that's useful. I don't do that a ton. If I was shooting, professionally, uh, and a lot and very seriously, I would use that a lot, to be able to quickly just click and sort through some things. Also, inside of this right panel here, you'll have the metadata, which is your camera information. So for each photo that is selected, it will display the camera information and the settings that were used. Yeah, so we'll jump in. We're going to import some photos that I just took as samples a moment ago. So down on this left side there is import, or I have mine set to, and I think it's default this way, when I insert a memory card into the computer, it will just pick it up and bring up the import dialog box. So I get that memory card in there, and there it goes. Without clicking anything, it gave me my import box. This no name, this is my memory card, this is where the photos that I just took are living. So when I import, at the left it's just showing the source that it's coming from. At the top it gives you options on how to move them over, how to get them to Lightroom. So usually I will choose this copy selection, and what that does is copies the file from the source into my storage location, and leaves it intact in the source. So it will remain on the memory card, but make a copy over onto the device that I've selected. Move basically does exactly what it says. It takes it from the source and moves it off of that source onto whatever device you've selected. And what add does is adds it to the catalog at its current storage location. So I put that in there, and if I import it, I have to have that device plugged in to be able to access those photos. So it's definitely important to select the appropriate option up top. Again, I usually pick copy. Like I said, it remains on the card or source, and also saved to my computer. On the right side, there's some options like don't import suspected duplicates. If you tend to not clear your memory card off frequently, that's an important one to check. So it just kind of ignores things that it already sees in the catalog. There's make a second copy too, so it just could keep all your stuff a second copy to a different location. Maybe you do that with an external hard drive for safety's sake. You can also rename files as they come in. This is nice if, again, we're shooting events or something like that, where I want to be able to go back and reference it, and I had some sort of special file naming that I really needed. Again, I'm usually fine with the file names from the camera. It does allow you to apply like basically a preset upon import. So if there's something that you need done to everything, no matter what, you can do that. But I would rather just pull them in and then work from them after the fact. And then destination. This is the big. This is the important part here. We got to know where it's going. Lightroom's standard catalog structure will save to your pictures folder, and then into a year folder, and then dates within that. What I do is, because I'm shooting, I'm shooting for fun. I'm shooting my family stuff. I'm shooting my vacations. I might be shooting little projects here and there for other people, but pretty casual. So I will go to, wherever I want to put it, usually my pictures folder, and I will name, I will go into a subfolder and call it what I want it to be called. So it's usually that event, or the day or whatever topic I was shooting. So Lightroom lunch 8, we will call it. So they are going to be, they're not stored within Lightroom. Lightroom is just referencing these at a location. So they are going to be physically placed in my pictures folder inside another folder called Lightroom Lunch May 8th. So I will always know where to go find the actual files. I can go straight there and find them. Down here are my other devices, so if I wanted to bring them into like an external storage device, I would do that here instead of having my hard drive selected. I would select whatever external device that I had plugged in. And we will go ahead and hit import. And there we go. So after we have imported the photos, we will go back to our library module here. It just kicks us right back here. And I have this grid view of the photos from that import, that folder. When I double click a photo, it will bring it to a full screen view or singled out view rather than the grid multi-view. And I can navigate through them either with this bottom tray here or using the arrow keys. So if I wanted to quickly flip through a bunch of photos, I might tab through using the arrow keys. When I am importing, I will, especially if it's this big collection from a vacation or something, one of the first things that I really like to do is I take advantage of Lightroom's rating tools. And I will quickly flip through, and either by clicking a star or a flag here, I can use the number keys on the computer, and I can add stars to photos that I want to go revisit, because one tool that Lightroom has is the ability to sort by these various tags. So, this one's blurry, I probably don't want it, I could skip over it. This one's not terribly interesting, but there's maybe something I want to talk about with it later. But anything that I want to go back and readdress, I will mark with 1 star. There's a bunch of different ways to do this. Just my strategy when I'm ingesting all of these images is just to quickly tab through them and mark the ones that I want to go revisit. So again, in this library module, like I said, there's these quick develop tabs or panel over here. Exposure, its brightness, and it just goes in these steps here. They're just quick clicks to make adjustments within this library module. But I'll show you sort first. So we've got everything marked. We've gotten through our whole collection of photos, and I would like to sort to just see the ones that I had marked with my star. So in this black bar here, there's filter, and here's all my filter tools. And what I would like to do is filter based on rating, so everything greater or equal to 1 star. I've clicked that, and I've applied my filter. So it knocked out, they do still exist, but right now I'm only viewing my starred photos. So that's what I've decided, like I said, I want to go back and address further. So skipping over from library to develop. This is where the fun stuff comes in. So we have got all of our more powerful tools and our sliders, but our whole collection of editing tools is now at our disposal. On the left side are preset effects. Lightroom has some built in, and as you hover over them, you can see what they're going to do. So if you find what you want there, you can just kind of leave it at that. There is also, there are companies that just make presets, and you can download them and install them. So this is a company called Mastin. I basically bought this as a science experiment, but they make presets based off of kind of a film look, and so they've got various presets. When you hover over, like I said, they show you their effect, and then you can set, you can save your own presets. If there's a certain edit style that you like, you can modify it and save it under these user presets to revisit again and again. On the right side with our tools here, at the very top, you'll see the histogram. And the histogram shows us where our exposure lies. The left side is representing our, the very left side is our blacks. Next to it, towards the left, is shadows. In the middle is kind of your midtones. And then towards the right, we see highlights, and then our very light, our very high point, our whites. So that's a good representation of where exposure falls. If that grouping is gathered more towards the left, that photo might be a little underexposed. If it's gathered more towards the right, we might be overexposed. And I'm going to click this one down here that I very purposefully underexposed, and we can see that on the histogram that the representation of our exposure is definitely collected to the left side. So that kind of shows that. That's the histogram. Below that are the more localized tools as well as crop, and I will jump into those in a little bit. So we'll skip past those into our sliders here. The two that I am probably going to use the very most when I am editing, especially going through a big collection, are going to be exposure and this temperature. Or temperature is also like our white balance. That's what our camera calls it. So with those two, exposure, I can lighten it up. And again, this histogram gives me a good idea of where my exposure lies. If I have most of it is collected in the middle, I have a good balance of exposure, and I can use that to help assist me as I modify that exposure slider. And temperature, your white balance, most of the time cameras do a great job. I had this set in automatic white balance in the camera, and it handled the shade of our overhang in front of the store just fine. But if I had it set incorrectly, like if I had it set for fluorescent accidentally, shooting in RAW, I have a very high tolerance for being able to set that correctly. I really don't even care what the camera's set at because I know I can correct it. So I can fix my color that way. Daylight out there in the shade is probably 5200. So that's pretty accurate to what was going on. You can see I just punched in. All I did was click in the photo. So within develop, if I make a single click, it will punch in so I can check detail. And I can also use like the pinch zoom function so I can expand out to get closer. or squeeze out to get further away. In the top left, it will show you like how much you're magnified. So if I just want to fit the whole image, I can click fit. If I want to fill the whole editing window with the image, that's what fill is. 1:1 will take you to the pixel resolution, basically punched in all the way that the pixels can represent based on your screen. And then the others are basically preset based on where you manually zoom to. So 3:1 means I am, I'm going to see individual pixels at this level. I am pushing past how many megapixels I actually have. So there's 1:1. So I can check my focus and make sure everything looks good there. We'll go back to fit. And then we'll work down these tools on the side. So like I said, probably most prominent and most used are going to be temp to fix white balance, and exposure especially to fix brightness. Below temp is tint, and it's a similar to temperature, where temperature is more on a warm to cool scale. Tint is the shift between like green to magenta. And most of the time, the automatic white balance in the camera gets that right. But if I want to push one direction or the other, I'll use that tint slider. Exposure we talked about. Contrast is just like it sounds. If I move that slider to the right, we see increased contrast. If I move to the left, we will see decreased contrast, so I lose that real deep black and those real, standouty bright highlights. So if I want to create some more drama, I might increase some contrast. If I wanted to have more drama in like a sunset especially, contrast might be one of the first tools that I touch. Below that is controlling a very specific area of the exposure. So highlights, when I pull down, it will bring down the very brightest, or the brighter areas of the photo, and you can see what that's doing to our histogram over there. Shadows, we'll do the same thing, but on the left side in our shadow area of the histogram. So if there were areas that were underexposed or silhouetted a little bit, like this is a good example, I would use, if I wanted to see Clancy's pop out there, I can bring the shadows up, and Clancy's really shows itself. And this would be an instance where I might want to bring the highlights down a little bit to try and recapture that sky. And it's all up to you. You got to play a little bit. When you go too far, your photo might just start looking unnatural. Below that is whites. That is at the very tippy-toppy point. You're setting the point at which the very brightest whites appear. And blacks, you are setting the point that the darkest part of the image starts. Set those back to 0. Beneath that is texture. That is a new tool for the most recent update. It can help increase like a perceived sharpness. There's probably some Adobe pros out there that can describe that a lot better, but you can definitely tell when I have it at its baseline, it looks pretty natural, and when we pull it down, it softens up. And when we increase it, it really brings out kind of a gritty, grainy quality, but can improve or increase the our perception of sharpness in the photo. Clarity is similar. What it'll do is really kind of boost contrasts, especially locally to various textures. So Again, if I want something to be really vibrant, if we jump back to that sunset example, I might boost the clarity a little bit to help increase its drama. Dehaze is really, really great um, for just generally making things pop more. I use it in probably all of my landscape shots to some degree at least. It's just a very intelligent kind of um, boost tool. So again, with moderation, I can make some great little pop and enhancement. When I go all the way, you can see how crazy that gets. So it's finding that balance to get a little bit of pop without just going crazy and going too far. Vibrance down here, vibrance and saturation are very closely related, but they will help kind of boost color. Vibrance gets a little crazy. It again with these really high contrast scenes, I might want to boost these vibrance and saturation sliders a little bit to again create more drama. So after we've been messing with this for a little bit, there is a way to view before and after with a quick shortcut key. It is the slash above your enter key. If we tap that, we will get a before and after view. So it's very quick and easy to see, are the edits I'm doing actually enhancing the photo and making it better, or am I just playing around moving sliders? Sometimes it feels like that, especially when you have a photo you're not sure about or one that you really like and you just start diving in. It's easy to go too far. So one thing that is very nice about that is on the left side, under history, you can view each individual adjustment that you have made. So obviously mine looks a little wacky right now because we went back and forth with a few of these tools, but you can go back to a specific point in the photo and just start from there again. So I really like that history panel on the left to take me back a few steps if I do something that I don't like. Okay, so yeah, I'm able to pop back and forth with before and after. And this does only work in the develop module. It does not work in the library. Let's knock these back. Below that is tone curve. Again, that lets you modify the exposure based on curves. I tend to find the sliders for me to be a little bit more intuitive. So that is one that I usually skip. And this HSL and color, what this lets you do is modify how each color is behaving separately. So with people, I really like using this to kind of bring skin tones back. If someone's face is looking a little red, I can pull the saturation in just the reds down until I get the view that I like. In this instance, just for a demo, I will pull the green. I'll desaturate our greens, and you can see a little less lively down here. I think if we do the same thing with aquas, yeah, we really start to see colors disappear out of like our Clancy's sign. And you can also modify within like hue, how the greens behave. Like, do my greens skew a little more blue, or do my greens skew yellow? So I can modify a single color individually um, without totally affecting the rest of the photo. So I use that also with like um, old photos when we've scanned them in. And if they've just aged funny and they have a color cast, I can modify how that specific color is behaving. So I find hue and saturation for each color really useful. Luminance, again, like I said, I'm not Adobe certified expert. I don't tend to use luminance a heck of a lot. Um, it appears to be affecting like the exposure on that color. Um, so if I feel like my greens have gotten a little gray um, or are a little under, I can kind of boost them up. But I am using hue and saturation a lot. Split toning is beneath that. What it allows you to do is tone the highlights and shadows separately. So yes, we can keep using this photo example. I can tone the highlights. A popular, you'll see this effect in movies a lot, but to warm the highlights up and to cool the shadows, so we get kind of a vintagey look. Let's see if we can apply that to maybe something a little more obvious. So I can use this color picker to give something a little more warmth in the highlights and cool it down in the shadows. So I get a little more vintage vibe there, before and after. So that's kind of a popular thing. And they have their own saturation sliders as well to affect how intense each of those effects is. Below that, we have the detail panel. That's going to apply sharpening and moving that back and forth. You'll see increased contrast and detail. When you go too far, let me punch it a little further than it is, you'll notice kind of an artificial gritty quality to it. So there is a limit as to how far you can push the sharpening on an image before it stops being useful and starts being distracting. I'm going to remove this split tone because to me, right now, that is distracting. Okay. So yeah, sharpening is there. Each of these sliders affects a little bit of the process of how it is being modified. Generally, I'll leave those in their default places and kind of add just a base level of sharpening to a lot of images. Or I might take it completely out. If I want to do a nice soft portrait, I will make sure that no sharpening is being applied. Noise reduction is kind of a nice tool as well. If I'm shooting in very low light situations where I start to get that noise and grain in the photo, I will apply some noise reduction to help kind of push that back. A side effect of that is that it does kind of soften the image a little bit because it's, you're trying to counteract what is essentially texture, and when it does that, it's going to kind of push detail back. But you've just kind of got to pick what you feel like is the real enemy there. but noise reduction is there. And then below that is lens corrections. Lens corrections, Adobe has basically poured through all these various combinations of lenses and worked with the manufacturers to apply corrections to help get rid of any unwanted artifacts that that lens may produce. So if I click remove chromatic aberration, I don't think we had much of it in any of these photos, but that is that kind of weird purple-green fringing that you can see sometimes in photos, especially that are backlit, but that really helps remove it. And enable profile collection. This goes to their specific lens profiles and applies corrections that the manufacturer notices to help fix. So it'll usually kind of correct for that distortion or anything there and kind of straighten it out. This is also where we can apply or remove a vignette as an effect. Or how much it's doing it. There's another tool to, or how much its correction is doing, rather. So if you like the vignette, you can mess with it. And then under manual corrections, that defringing, if the automatic chromatic aberration profile didn't take care of what you wanted to, you can specify a more direct color range to then desaturate. So it's looking for those fringes of a specific hue and then pulling those down based on how much you tell it to. Below that is transform. That is where I get the effect of correcting for some distortion and skew and all that fun stuff. So moving those around will modify the image that way. There's all sorts of them. Those I don't use a heck of a lot. And then effects. Here's my vignette. So pulling it down will decrease the exposure in the corners, and you can pick how feathered that effect is, so how soft that gradation is. Okay, so that's calibration. We will leave it. That is another conversation for another day. So let's pop up to these tools, the ones that I kind of skipped over earlier, so I have to talk about them all together. The first one up here is crop. So when I choose crop, it brings up my cropping box, and I can drag the corner of that to my desired area, and then drag my image around to create the framing that I want. Once I have selected crop, it's going to bring up my crop options here. This little lock under aspect is maintaining that original aspect that the photo was taken in. So you can see that it's remaining perfect to how it was originally shot. If I click that lock, it opens it up, and I am free to move how I please. So if I wanted to crop a very specific size or format, I can do that. When I hit enter, it applies the crop and kicks me out of the crop tool so that I'm free to go back to just my normal editing. When I click back into the crop tool, you can see that my whole image is still there to work with. So I can modify. I can also, under aspect, pick a specific aspect ratio. So if I want a square photo, so this is where when I'm dealing with prints especially, or web stuff that I need a specific format for, I can choose my ratio here or enter a custom one. So if I want a square, I can click 1 by 1, and I have a perfect square. What I just accidentally clicked was outside of the box, and that is going to bring up my next point here, is straightening. Clicking outside of the box, while our little arrow is that little curvy guy with 2 arrows, I can click, and you can see that it brings up more grids, and that will help me straighten my photo. And we've only got so much photo to work with to straighten, or you can see that it will, if I go too far, it's going to crop what it can based on what amount of the photo is kind of left. But to help me straighten my horizons, I will go into the crop tool and just straighten that way. Again, I can set a custom aspect, or I can set a more standard one if we're going to be doing some prints, 4 by 6. But super easy to use, super easy to modify. So there is crop. Next to crop is the spot removal tool. With that, when I click that, I get a brush, and I can change the size of that brush by moving the slider here. And this is great for removing defects, skin imperfections, or dust in scan photos. Or like here, I've got this white spot on the flower. All I do is I'm going to click and paint that. And you notice it's going and picking a source after that. And I can move that source around to find something that matches more what I want. And I hit enter, and my spot removal is complete. If I have a simple spot like this where I just want to click, again, it's going to go source and pick a similar area to what I am modifying and cover it up. So super easy to use and very smart. If I want to make sure to maintain like this edge, I will pick something with a similar edge. And when I hit enter, it finalizes it. Again, I can choose how the brush is behaving, the feather, like how much it will fade at the end of the brush, and the opacity, 100% for replacement. I knock that down if I want to maintain some of the original detail that I'm manipulating. Next to that's red eye correction. I don't have any red eye photos to show you for an example for that, but it works pretty well. You click on the eye, and it fixes red eye. Next to that is a tool I use a ton. It is the graduated filter. So if we go back to this scene here, what graduated filter does is it applies a graduated effect that I have dialed in. So right now, I keep defaulting to this. When I click, I hold and I drag my graduated filter down, and that becomes my affected area. If I hover my pointer over that dot, it will show the area that it's affecting in red, so it's a little easier to visualize. So when I go over here within the tool and I bring down exposure, you'll see what it's doing here. So that's how I bring, maybe my skies back under control or create some drama there. If I wanted to, blue up my skies, I can kind of push it towards that direction. If I wanted to increase the vibrance of the colors that are already there. Again, there's our sunset example there. I can do that over here as well. And I can pull each mark. You'll see these 3 lines. I can pull each of these to change the area that it is affecting. If I hover over the center dash, I can click and tilt that area. So like I'll go back to one of these Rockbrook shots and I'll show, but I can use that to like match the horizon. But yeah, typically I will use that inside of skies to kind of bring them back. You know, if I wanted to pull exposure down, pull the highlights down a little bit to kind of bring them back in line. You know, I feel like for this photo we actually had a little bit of blue, so I might not want this much drama, but I can always go back into that tool and modify it. I can make it a little bit less intense. But you hit enter and there it goes. So that is a tool I use a ton, that graduated filter. Next to it is like a radial filter. Similar idea. I can drag an area to effect, and when I modify, when I pull a slider down, what it'll do is it will affect everything outside of that, and so I can pull like a background down, like on this flower shot, I could maybe draw my filter over this flower and bring down just the background. Obviously, this is a super dramatic, unnecessarily dramatic example here. But if I wanted to focus on that flower and really kind of make it the center point, I can use that radial filter and affect the background. Before, there's after, so my flower in the center remains bright, and I've pushed my background back. So that's super nice there. Next to that is adjustment brush. So this lets me locally make adjustments. So I can paint in areas. So I've created an instance of that local brush, and I can modify just what I've painted here. And you can see it will detect edges. So if you're not real clean with your brush, it will detect edges and help you to not accidentally modify something. So you can be a little bit sloppy. But using that brush creates a localized edit with whatever adjustments you want to that. And again, I can modify it after the fact. I can turn it up or down or change what it's doing. Right now we just have an outrageous amount of exposure pulling down. So if I wanted that to be a little less dramatic, I can go in effect, and it's just affecting, I'll click on this dot, that instance. If I wanted to create a new one, I could hit new and do the same thing in an area and make an adjustment. And they are separate. So I click on them separately, or I hover over them and it shows me the area that they are modifying. So that's a great way to make, a local edit. I can do that with skies or, shadows in a specific area that I just want to bring up. I'll use that local brush for. Let's see. Yeah, that is library and develop. Oh, we need to export. So I've made all my edits. to these photos. And if I was shooting in RAW like I was for most of these, we've made all our edits. What I want to do is export them then to something useful. So I can't do anything with these RAW files. I can't post them on Facebook or whatever I was trying to do. So I will select all of them. And again, this is just my smaller starred collection. And I will right click and I will go to export and this top export option here. And that brings up my export dialog box, in which case it gives me a location. Where do I want it to go? Most of the time I will send it to the same folder it came from, so I know where to go find them, or I can tell it a very specific place and choose it. But for here, we'll go same as original, so I know where they're going. And you can rename them. There are some kind of preset renames, or you can keep them the same. I will usually do a custom name so that I can use my computer's search function to find them later too. And rename them, based off what I've done here. And it creates new files with a new name, and then it'll number them after that. And then I can also tell it what format we want. JPEG is your most standard, most versatile format for sharing, most universal format, I should say. For sharing, I can choose a quality setting. If I want to manage like my file size, there is a specific file size option. So some services, like I know some of the real estate services or some web platforms only allow files to be a certain size when you upload them. So you can limit your file size to a specific data cap, basically. In similar vein, I can resize. So if we're doing print, I could tell it to resize based on inches. If we're going like to web, I could tell it specific pixel dimensions to be. Like if it's, and I'll usually use this long edge. So if I formatted it properly for what I want, I will resize to a certain dimension, usually to match the long edge to a certain dimension. Output sharpening, I will usually leave this to standard or low because I've just done all the editing I wanted to do. I've made all the modifications I want to make. So this final JPEG output, I will usually do standard or low just to keep it how I like it. I've seen what it's going to be. And then you can also have, instead of screen, there is matte and glossy print paper outputs. There's also options to remove metadata like the camera or photo information, or add your watermark. But when we do that, we will export. And in the top left of Lightroom is my status bar. So my computer is chugging away there to export these 9 files, and they are done. So it just showed me, well, this has changed since last time I used it, but it just showed me where it put it. So like we talked in the beginning of the video, when we brought them in, it made this folder called Lightroom Lunch May 8th. And then because my camera date was set wrong, it brought them in based on date. And there's my original files in there. Let me share my whole screen. So it popped this up. So it is on my computer in my pictures folder in that Lightroom Lunch folder that we made, and then separated by date, and then my final export. So those are my final JPEGs that have our new name, custom name in them. So they're stored locally, and I know where to go find them. Lightroom is just there, it's referencing them. Another cool thing about Lightroom is that if we were to close it, I can hit yes. It will ask me to back up my catalog. I would usually do that. But what I can do is I can open Lightroom right back up, and everything that we just did is in the same place. So if I need to modify something, it'll be right where we left it. I don't have to share this catalog back up. Sometimes can take a little bit, especially if you haven't done it for a while. But Lightroom closing. Okay, so Lightroom's closed. If I click back into it, it's just going to be right where we left it. So all the tools, all the adjustments we made are going to be right there, just as we had it. So I'll click back in here. This is showing me that cropped version of the photo I took and all of my adjustments that we dialed in. So super useful. This was my just basic, quick, dirty Lightroom rundown. Basic tools that I use every day inside of Lightroom. And yeah, I just want to run through that. It's supposed to be kind of casual. I hope that you guys picked something out of it. If you have any more questions, feel free to email me at Aaron, Aaron, Frey, Frey, at rockbrookcamera.com. If you've got any more questions or specific tips or whatever, shoot me a message. I'd be happy to help you out. Otherwise, I think this is it for today. Thanks for joining. Bye.